us. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. So you're all ready with your questions, to ask, because yeah, we have a very intellectual person here to talk to us, and yeah. So this is Victory Yinka-Banjo. She's an ML researcher and president of the biotech group MIT. Hope I got that right. Yeah, yeah. So I know some of us must have heard about her and her exploits. Yeah, so this is a session we're having to talk and ask questions, to um get knowledge from her whole wealth of experience and all. So yeah, so let's get started. And I would like to ask you first, um, is there any other thing that I didn't mention that you do?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you.
Or I covered it all? Nice. Thank you. Okay, so let me get my question.
I think maybe generally I can also say that I'm studying at MIT. So even though he mentioned I do research, I'm also a student, like a regular student, and I'm studying computer science and molecular biology. So if you have questions about that as well, and I'm in my third year. So in the American system, we call that junior year, which is our third year. So I'm in my third year.
Oh yeah, I actually almost forgot that. Well, it's quite humble of you to still acknowledge that you're a student, even though, I'm not sure you might not be a student today, maybe like a prof student. Yeah, so okay, yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so to everyone that are joining, because people are joining the call from different places, from LinkedIn, from different um, social media platforms. So if you don't know, this is the Air Lab community, AI and robotics lab, Unilab. So we're the ones hosting this, and yeah, we're having the session with her, and yeah, we'll be sharing the link to our community very soon in the chat. So let's just sit back and enjoy as we begin. So firstly, my first question is I would like you to tell us a little about yourself. Yeah, just tell us a little about
Okay.
yourself.
Okay, sure. So I think I introduced myself briefly. My name is Victory. I like I said, go to MIT. I'm studying computer science and molecular biology in my junior year, which is my third year. I went to secondary school in Lagos. So I grew up in Lagos. You might know my mom. My mom is Dr. Chika. She's also on the call, and she started the Air Lab, which is hosting this call. So in Lagos, I went to Princeton College in Surulere, and then I went through this access program after finishing WIAC, after doing like all my final exams, which was called Education USA. It was during that program that I wrote my SAT. Then I started applying to universities here in the US. And then I got into MIT, which was my dream school. MIT is a really good school. So since then, which was in 2021, I got in start 2021, and I started school in August 2021. So I've been here since then, making my way through college, figuring out what it is exactly I wanted to study. So I actually came in wanting to study computer science and biology, and that's what I've stuck with. I'm very interested in like AI for the life sciences, becoming more interested in just like AI in general because there's so many applications. Like I'm sure you guys have heard of ChatGPT, which everyone can't stop talking about. So just like the use of things like large language models. I'm currently taking a machine learning class. I've been learning a lot more about like reinforcement learning, which is also a very interesting aspect of AI and ML. AI stands for artificial intelligence, ML stands for machine learning. And yeah, so right now I'm trying to figure out what it is I want to do with my future, what I want to do with my life. I interned last summer at a biotechnology company where I was working on cancer diagnostics and bioinformatics, which is basically just like using data to understand biology better. which wasn't really AI, but it was like sort of like an intro because it was a bit of data science. And right now I'm also looking for basically applying to places for next summer to try something new and explore more opportunities that are available in the US.
All right. That's that's quite very interesting. That's quite very interesting. Yeah, and the part where you said, still trying to figure out, what to do in the future, and I'm like, wow, with everything you're into now, yeah, still trying to figure out. I'm not like, hey, what about me? Okay, yeah, that's very interesting. Interesting. So, yeah, okay. So, please, I would need someone. Okay, there should be someone on the call taking note of the questions, so you guys could keep dropping your questions and everything in the chat. And we'll have a time where we'll go over questions that we we can go over. Yeah. So let's move on. So yeah, so on your LinkedIn, we always say this machine learning researcher. What does it mean? Being a machine learning researcher, what does it mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's a role I started in September. So I'm working in a lab on MIT's campus. So the really cool thing about like the US in general, or at least MIT I know of, is that the research opportunities are endless. So like even as I'm doing the one that I'm doing right now, I'm thinking of like which other ones I want to explore. And it can be really hard to strike a balance between depth versus breadth, where like right now I enjoy what I'm doing, but there's so many other things I want to do. So currently what I'm doing is deep learning for biology. And basically it's using machine learning tools and applying that to biological data. So specifically, I'm working with data sets that involve images of cells. So like cells are things that are like molecular. Every human has cells in their body. So we have a data set that was extracted from human tissue from people who might be experiencing specific metabolic diseases. So by metabolic diseases, think of like diabetes, think of hypertension, think of obesity. So we have a partnering lab that does like all the hands-on biology. They extracted a couple of tissue samples from patients, and then we got images of the cells, and we looked at the cells as they progressed over like a couple of days to see how they were changing over time. So we're trying to use that data, and we also have with the cells, with the images of the cells, we also have genotyping data, which is basically like, I don't know if you guys know what a gene is, or if you've heard of like, you've probably heard of the term DNA, but many people don't actually know what DNA is. I won't go too much into the details of that, but like you're basically made up of a bunch of DNA. So like your genes are, your genetic makeup tells a lot about like what makes you you, like why your eyes are the color that they are, why your hair is as thick as it is, etc. So we also extracted genetic data from these cells because every one of your cells has all your genetic data in it. So a single cell is enough. So we're trying to analyze that data, which is very dense. It's like an example of big data. And we're looking at that in conjunction with the images. We're trying to see how we can create like some kind of representative space that combines both of these data sets into one so that we can make predictions on unseen data. So there's like a specific type of neural network, and neural networks are like a fundamental aspect of AI, but there's a specific type of neural network called autoencoders. So that forms like the basis of our methodology, like how we're working with this data set. So we're using autoencoders, which basically takes data and then puts them into some like other representation, which is usually scaled down to a smaller space. But what we're doing is scaling up. And then we're putting all of these there, making it so that you don't even know how the data came in the first place. So there's no biases. And then trying to see, okay, like given this combination of images and genetic data, can we make predictions on future images of cells from people who have diseases, which, if you think about it, is very beneficial for disease diagnosis, because sometimes diagnosing certain diseases takes time, takes money. But if you have images of cells only, which is like a cheap way of getting information, like cell imaging is cheap. So if you have an image of a cell, if you can figure out what gene is correlated with that cell, because we have trained like some AI model to make those predictions based on like having the full data, we give it unseen data to predict those genes. That's information that can empower people who are developing like drugs and therapeutics, because they know what gene to specifically target in a given patient. And that's how like drugs are really made up. That's how many like people who create drugs or people who work in research and medical research, that's what they do. They try to figure out, okay, what causes this disease? And if we are able to make this work, we're using a very cheap method, which is just imaging of cells to figure out what exactly the cause of a disease is for a specific disease patient. And that's where like the deep learning and AI comes in, because you can't really do cell imaging, or you can't do genotyping for every single human once they fall sick, or if there's like possibility of them falling sick. But if you can like quickly image their cells and figure out what gene causes the disease using AI models or using predictions or using deep learning, then you can speed up the process of disease diagnosis, disease and therapeutic development, and then ultimately just like help save lives a lot quicker. So that's what I'm working on. I hope I didn't make that too complicated, but if you have follow-up questions, I can explain. I can talk more about like where exactly the deep learning comes in if that wasn't clear. But that's kind of like an example of computer science and molecular biology overlapping. So the idea of computational biology, the idea of AI for biosciences, and yeah.
Wow, that was a lot. Because you kind of like answered, I think, two questions I've wanted to ask. You already answered it before even asking. Wow, really interesting stuff. Because when you're talking, I kind of heard so many things about molecular biology, and I'm not so into it, and I know some people might not be so into it. So we're still coming to the aspect of molecular biology. But before we go into that aspect, I wanted to ask, what's your motivation for doing this? What's your motivation? What motivates you to do it?
Yeah, I think the space like where computational biology lies, like just in general, human health and disease is very untapped. So I've done like pure biology research before I started doing ML research. And first of all, it's very slow. So there's a lot of things that you can't get done in really like given a short time frame, you can't really get anything done. So when people do PhDs or do like research, they're doing it for 5 years, 6 years. In biology, sometimes that can take 7 years. In CS, that can be 4 to 5 years. So the timeline is shorter. So biological research really needs to be sped up in order to like make patient impact a lot quicker, so that the biggest disease questions or biggest like questions in biology can be answered faster and more lives are saved quicker. So that's one. I think like biology can't progress at the speed that it should be in this day and age without AI. So that's one of the reasons I'm very interested. I think also I already like sort of said this, but maybe the second answer to that would be that there's so many interesting problems, so many interesting questions. So what I talked about right now is like an aspect of biology known as causal, or an aspect of AI in general called causal inference, and being able to apply that to AI. And that's just one aspect. Like this specifically focuses on an aspect of biology known as genomics. So like merging causal inference with genomics, or merging causal inference with cell imaging. But then there's like protein and drug discovery. There's like creating patient like trackers for like, let's say you're monitoring like how Apple Watches work, like monitoring your what's the word, like your pulse, like your, I can't find the right word for the metrics that are related to just like figuring out how healthy you are. So there's many different things that I could be doing. And I think that's what makes it exciting, because if I get bored or realize that this isn't what I want to do, just within the space of human health and within the space of biotechnology, there's a lot that excites me and there's a lot I want to explore. So it's like untapped, it's broad. And then I'm doing it out of personal interest as well. So when I was coming to MIT, like biology was my favorite subject in secondary school. I also had like some Scratch and App Inventor knowledge, like very, very basic Python. So when I took my first CS class, it was difficult. I didn't really like it that much, but it was okay. Then I took my second CS class and I absolutely loved it. And that's why I decided to stick with computer science and biology. And like my CS classes after that have also been really good. And CS stands for computer science. So like my classes are interesting to me. So I actually enjoy my major. I enjoy what I'm studying. And then the areas of research that are available to me are also very cool. And they actually have a direct impact, right? Because if you're doing research, especially in a clinical setting, for instance, the speed at which your research progresses can determine the speed at which a patient's life is saved, or can determine the speed at which a disease is cured. And then also something that's more interesting to me recently is when I came to America, I realized everybody is trying to do cancer research. And I actually did like a bit of cancer research last year. And cancer is a big problem, but it's a big problem. It's especially a big problem for people who live on this aspect of, on this side of the world. Everybody around the world experiences cancer, but cancer is one of the biggest problems here. If you think about like Nigeria, think about Africa, malaria is a problem. Lassa fever is a problem. Tropical diseases are a problem, infectious diseases, but there isn't enough funding going into solving diseases like that. So like more recently, I've started thinking about how I want to like tap into that space if possible, if I can, because the principles that you learn from like trying to cure a disease like cancer can be applied to diseases that are more specific to like Black people, that more specific to African nations, more specific to tropical countries like Nigeria. So yeah, diseases are broad. There's rare diseases. There's so many diseases. So there's so much you can be doing within biology and biotechnology, because you can just pick a focus area where no one is focusing on and make a serious impact if you can get it funded, if you can get enough smart people excited about the idea as well. So yeah, that's why I'm interested. I'm good at biology. I know a lot of my friends who are taking biology classes and struggling. And I thought like biology was easy for everybody, but I realized it's not. So it's something that comes naturally to me. And like computer science, there's a lot of people at MIT that are good at computer science. The best of the best in computer science are here. So like I don't see people struggling with computer science as much as they do with biology. But computer science is also something that like I pick up relatively naturally as well. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Wow. Yeah, you did. You surely did. So, you had passion for biology, you have passion for solving problems, and you wanted to, you also talked about, the fact that normal biology is slow, the processes are slow, and you feel, AI and these things can speed things up, and, maybe cures can be made faster, things can be diagnosed, like, for instance, the coronavirus, like something like that now. If we had like faster systems, the process of making the cure would have been faster, right?
Oh, so like the coronavirus is an example of how like computation actually sped up biology. Because if you look historically at how long it takes vaccines to be produced, it takes on the order of like 5 years, 10 years or more. But if you look at the coronavirus, the speed was insane. And that's because every person who is into biotech, biology, computation, AI, CS, they all came together and pulled their tools together. They pulled all the development. And that's why like biotech is now making waves. Like that's why everybody knows about Pfizer and Moderna. They've been existing for years and years, but their processes have been slow because they didn't have any funding. So like the coronavirus vaccine being created is an example of why I'm excited about computational biology. Because if you didn't have people who got access to the structure of the virus that causes the coronavirus, which was gotten by using a machine, a sequencer, from the company I actually worked at last summer. If they didn't come together, if there weren't people who are able to use these devices, use these computational tools, we might still actually be suffering from, like, we might not even have had a vaccine right now for COVID. Like we might have still been in the midst of a pandemic and like not been able to meet up in person. But because you had all the smartest minds who are within the spaces coming together, like you can see how impactful biology and biotechnology, when you merge it with computation and like the greatest minds, can be. And like now people are paying more attention to human health because they know what the possibilities are. So I really want to be part of that process, like going forward, like solving the biggest problems, solving hard problems, especially like increasing the amount of knowledge that's available for diseases that are very specific to people who are not whites, because everyone and their mother wants to solve cancer, but there's other diseases that really could also be paid attention to.
All right. Yeah, it's clear now. Very, very clear. And I'm sure there are also aspirants like that in the call, you know. And I also wanted to ask things, did you learn them in school or were they taught in the classrooms or you had to, you know, do your own research, do your homework, you know, do the extra things and or I just want to, you know, understand how everything happened.
Yeah, I didn't know a lot coming to university. Like there was so much I didn't know. And I think like the more I know, the more I realize I don't know. So like life is just going to be a never-ending process of learning. So like even now I'm doing ML research, like every day I'm like, wow, there's so many things I still do not know. But then I also like have to look back and realize there's so much I've learned by embracing that mindset of like, okay, I don't know, but I want to know. Because like one of the biggest dangers is thinking you know when you actually don't know. So I think like a lot of humility comes into the picture. And coming to MIT has definitely helped me a lot because every class I take is definitely a challenge because I'm learning so many things I don't know at a very fast pace. So many of the things I've learned have been since I came to university. I didn't know anything about how to like use biological instruments, I didn't know, I really didn't actually know how ML worked or AI worked. I didn't actually know what a neural network was until like this year. So there's so many things that like they're buzzwords and people think they know, but I think the really cool thing about MIT is it challenges what you think you know. So it's like, oh, people think they know what AI is, but then you take a class in machine learning and you actually have to understand the math and understand how a neural network is, and you realize you don't know. So I think questioning like my ideas of like what is known is something that I've become better at doing. Um, and I've learned on the go. So there's not everything I learned from classes. Doing research has really helped me. Taking on new projects has really helped me. It's given me like the room to just do a lot of independent learning. So I spend a lot of my holidays like just like learning new things because every holiday I'm like, okay, this is something else I want to learn. And I have a long list of things I still want to learn. So we'll see how long it takes. And I don't think the list will just like will ever stop growing because the more you know, like the more like impact you can make. Like knowledge is power. Um, and MIT has this really cool semester called IAP, which is in between the fall semester, which is from September to December, and our spring semester, which is from February till May. We have our January semester, which is independent. So during that semester, people do whatever they want. So you have the option to take a class if you want to, but it's not like required. And the classes are usually fun classes like robotics, just like spending the whole month programming robots to compete and winning a prize. Last IAP, last January, I did a web programming competition, and that was my first time actually using JavaScript. That was my first time building a full stack web app. And then my team did really well, and then we won a cash prize. So we just spent the whole month for fun building a website. And then this coming IAP, I'm going to be doing more research. So we are allowed to take that month off from classes, and people just like dedicate their time to doing really fun but very intellectual things as well. And that's been one of my biggest learning opportunities, I think. So making time to just like learn is really helpful. And a lot of it will be independent. Not everything will be from classes, but classes do help. So there's a couple hands. So Jude, do you want me to choose who to pick, or you can pick?
Okay, yeah, you could yes, so we have Leo. Yeah. We have Leo. So Leo could go. Yeah.
All right. I wanted to ask something. Balancing academics and other activities can be challenging. How do you manage your time effectively? And do you have any tips for maintaining a healthy work-life balance?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is challenging. I think it's been even more challenging since I came to university as well. And I think I would say like this year has been the year where I actually have sort of started getting better at time management. My freshman and sophomore year, my first and second years were pretty difficult with trying to strike a balance because I wanted to do everything. I was in like 7 clubs doing research, also taking classes. And that wasn't the best approach, I would say. I think scaling priorities is really important. So this year I've dropped a lot of things. I'm only involved really in 2 clubs and I'm taking I'm taking my classes, and then I'm also doing research. And how I do it is I really dedicate like my weekends to research, because now I'm doing computational research, so I don't have to go into lab every day. So I divide my time where like during the week, I'm really focused on school and focused on club activities that I need to be focused on. And during the weekend, especially starting like today, I'll be doing like research related things, like reading more about how to train a model, how to optimize training a model, actually training that model. And then on Mondays when I meet my mentor, and I spend like that whole weekend just like working towards meeting my mentor and giving her updates about how my research is going. During the week itself, though, I think everything is just like, okay, what is using your deadlines as like a way to keep your schedule, to stay on top of your schedule. So I do the things that I do earliest first. And I also ask for help when I need it. So if I know I need like an extra day on an assignment, you can't do that every time, but once in a while. This semester, I actually haven't asked for any, which means I think my time management is getting better. But if it's something that really like you really need, and you need more time on, and you know, like the professor or whoever you're working with, the instructor, the teacher is someone that can allow that, then go for it if it's something that really is telling on like your mental health or that kind of thing. I think discipline is very important too, because like I stay off social media once in a while. I know when like I have like exams coming up that some things will have to be sacrificed, and sometimes that just means sacrificing the time I spend on like Instagram, or sacrificing the time I would use to have gone to like a club activity. So my like scaling, my priority scaling is right now schoolwork, and then clubs and research. And most times, if I need to, I put my research first, especially if I know I need to have a meeting with my advisor. I don't really know if there's anything like work-life balance. I would say like you have seasons where some things need to be prioritized more than others. And that's something I've learned from speaking to a bunch of people in their careers, where sometimes like, especially like, let's give an example of like someone who has kids. Sometimes your kids come first for like a month or like for 3 weeks. And like, you're not spending as much time on like your actual work as a working mom, for instance. And then that flips when it's like your kids are doing okay and it's time for you to work on like a project that you need to submit for a grant proposal, for example. So when I have exams, I don't really focus on my research. When I'm just like handing assignments every week, I try to spend as much time on my research. If I have a long weekend where like we have a public holiday, I try to dedicate that time to research or catching up on school. So I think about it that way, like what needs to be prioritized at what point in time. And given every week, given every deadline, which thing is the most important. I think with practice, you become better at figuring out what you should prioritize. So I feel I have developed the intuition to know when something can be put off, even though I would really want to get it out of the way now. Like I need to know that this other thing that I don't want to do needs to be done first, because of the idea of like scheduling and timelines. So I don't know if that helped or answered your question, but if you have any follow-up questions, I can answer as well.
Leo, does that answer your question? Because for me, it did answer.
Yeah,
Rest of the
certainly it
class.
does. Yeah, it does. But I also
All
want
right,
to
yeah.
ask one more question. What are
Okay.
your plans for the future ahead after graduation?
Oh, that's a great question. So everything is honestly up to God and like his plans for me. So I'm hoping by God's grace to continue school. So I'm thinking of doing a PhD and going straight to graduate school. So I think in Nigeria, a lot of people do like, well, people who decide to do postgraduate studies sometimes do a master's before a PhD. In the US, it's a bit different. You don't really need a master's to do a PhD. You can go straight into it. So I'm hoping to be able to do a PhD after graduating, or maybe take a year off, maybe work for a year and then do a PhD. But I'm very excited about research. And when you doing a PhD is a great opportunity to do research full time, to have control over your work, to grow intellectually, to become like an expert in one thing. So that's what it's looking like I'm going to be doing. And then after that, we'll see where things go. I'm still trying to figure out what will happen after. But that's like my closest shorter term goal.
All right, that's very good. I also want to ask something else. Sorry. Like, what are your most vivid experiences at MIT so far?
Wait, what do you mean by vivid?
Like events that you look forward to each year that go on at MIT?
Oh, that's a good question. MIT is really fun, I have to say. It's challenging, but there's like a lot of cool things happening. So for instance, I'm involved with the African Students Association, which is like all the Africans who are here. And every year we have this thing called Cultural Night where we do like a showcase of all the cultures, like different African cultures that we have. And then there's neighboring schools around as well. So like Harvard is really close, Tufts University, Boston College, many. So they also have African student groups and they have those kinds of things. So that's really fun to go to with my friends. That's also been fun to plan because last year I was on the like executive team for the African students. So I helped plan that event. And outside of that, there's like so many fun things. I guess like what do I look forward to? I look forward to like IAP, which is the January semester I mentioned, where you can do anything. I look forward to spending time with my friends, like exploring different cities, planning trips with my friends too, which I'm currently in the process of doing. So just like exploring the US, going out to Boston. And yeah, there's many traditions. Oh, MIT has this thing called Pi Day. So March 14th, which is like 3.14, like is 314, which is March 14th, which is 3.14, is a big day at MIT. So there's lots and lots of pies, like to stand for pi. There's a lot of like hidden nerdy things that happen. I can't think of all of them, but trust me, like there's just so many. At the start of the year, we have orientation where incoming students come. That's also a really fun time. And when students get admitted, we have this thing called CPW, where students who are admitted are flown in. And for 3.14 days, they just explore campus and do whatever they want. And like MIT seems like the best place to be in the world, which it is, but we don't show them the academic stress. So that time is like where everybody's trying to like get people to like notice their clubs, join their clubs, show them what it's like to like be an MIT student. And that's always fun because you have all these people who are trying to decide whether or not to come to MIT, and everyone is trying to convince them to come. So those are a couple examples. There's a lot that happens though. Okay, so I won't take any more questions from Leo. So that other people
I have to come in
can
here.
answer questions.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
so
Actually, I was facing some technical issues, so I had to like, sorry for it took so long. Yeah, so thank you. And Abdulaziz will take your question later. Yes.
okay,
Okay.
there's also questions in the chat.
Okay, the questions in the chat.
Yeah,
Okay.
but we can, I think after, since you already said
Yeah, when
Abdulaziz, so
we're
after
done,
him, then we
yeah,
can look at the
we'll take
chat.
the questions. We'll take the questions. Okay, thank you guys.
Okay.
We know you have lots of questions. We're going to take them. Just you guys should calm down a little. Yes. So
So,
hello Abdulaziz, we are going to get a question. Just calm down a little. Thank you.
shall I?
Thank you.
Shall I?
Yeah, so no, we'll
Yeah,
get a question.
I think, no,
Oh,
I think he can just go since you already called him. And
let's
then
go.
after that, we'll just go in the chat in order.
All right, then you can go, Abdulaziz.
Okay. Like what you said, he said, is it like after what's your plan for after school? So like,
Yeah.
you plan. Okay, where do you plan to work? Like, where is your dream place to work at? Like,
I don't really have a dream place to work at. I'm currently just looking into schools that have good PhD programs. So I'm trying to figure out like what my ideal program looks like. And I think the reason I want to do a PhD as well is because after interning, and we'll see how next summer goes when I'm hopefully interning again. Working for people is very, well, so far in my experience has been kind of boring. So you're very like streamlined into doing a specific thing. But it really depends on who you are. I think I'm a person that wants liberty and wants to just like do a bunch of things, explore more. intern more, work in more places, and see what is my ideal fit. But my past work experience, I would say I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. So I was like, okay, no, that's a great experience. And so far, I don't have an ideal place to work, but I hope the more I do like internships, I can explore and figure out what that would be. For now, I just want to do more research, do more school, do more internships.
Okay.
And thank you for the question. Thank you for everyone who's asked questions so far. So I think the first person who asked was Safia. Do you want me to just handle the questions in the chat, Jude, and go through them one by one, since I can read them? Okay.
I still have more questions though from my own end. So I feel, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Oh, so when are we going to get to the questions in the chat?
Okay, let me check then. Okay, let's do that. Since you can see them.
Yeah, I think maybe if we get through the questions in the chat quickly enough, then we can come back to your questions, because I'm sure your questions will be helpful for everyone in general. But since like people have some specific ones, I'll just try to get through, and then we can circle back if that's okay.
Yeah, that's cool.
Cool. Okay. So Safia asked, what do you advise for someone who is multi-interested in different fields and wants to find a niche? I wish you gave a bit more context. I know what different things you're interested in, but I would say don't try to box yourself in. Explore all the things you want to explore. Think in past generations, like people would say, be a lawyer, be a doctor, be an engineer. I'm trying to be someone who is both a computer scientist and a biologist, meaning that like in this day and age, you can really do anything you want to do. It's just a matter of seasons and balancing and figuring out when in your life one needs to take precedence over the other. So I think my first 2 years, I've done a lot more biology. Now in my third year, I'm trying to do a lot more computer science. And I'm hoping in the future to have like some even balance between both of them, figure out which one I want to lean more towards, because it's difficult to do both exactly if you want to merge them. Sometimes you have to choose a different end. But I would say you're probably pretty young, I'm guessing. If you're like in secondary school, university, don't give up on like one for the other for now. Do both and see where life takes you. But yeah, don't give up on like your passions or your interests unless you get to a point where you realize you actually prefer one over the other. Or yeah. So, and you never know, you might find a way to merge them together in the future. I'm finding a way to merge both computer science and biology, which are things I'm interested in. Then someone sent me a direct message. I'm going in order of the questions I got. Someone sent me a direct message which says, what do you plan on doing after your undergrad studies? What activities do you do to unwind in your free time? I've answered the first question about what I want to do after undergrad, what I'm praying and hoping will work out for me. And then activities to unwind. I just finished reading a book. So I had a 2-day break from school for what we call Thanksgiving, which is a public holiday here. So I was reading this book called Tomorrow I Become a Woman. It's by a Nigerian author. I forgot her name, but her name starts with, I forgot her last name, but if anybody is interested, it was a really good book. I want to see. And I'm only recommending this book because it talks a lot about like freedom as a woman and independence as a woman. And I think like for every girl here, like one thing that I'm very grateful for is growing up in a family that allowed me to do whatever it is I wanted to do and not box me into like the idea of like getting married very early or giving up on my dream too early, or like just like following my passion and what I wanted to do. And the book is really good. It also got me so angry because it just talks about a lot of like systems and problems in Nigeria and a lot of people who are problematic. But it got me angry in a good way where like I was motivated. So that's something I do in my free time. I read books. I read mostly fiction books. I'm trying to read more self-help books. I also like I started learning how to like plait hair when I came to America. So sometimes I do my own hair because getting hair done in America is very expensive. like as in expensive. Like you will cut your hair before you pay that sum. So I started learning how to plait hair, and that's something I do. I also like baking and cooking when I have the time, especially over the summers. I like cooking a lot. So I like exploring new things, trying new ways to cook. And then I just go out with my friends. I like to explore new foods, explore new restaurants, explore the city. So yeah.
Sorry, did you make this yourself?
No, I didn't make this myself. I made this in Nigeria actually. But the hair I had
Okay.
on, I did during the summer. I had like 2 different hairstyles, and I did with them myself, and I was very proud.
Wow.
So I did like big box braids, and yeah.
All right.
So the next question is, I wanted to ask, how do you deal with imposter syndrome, especially in a field like computational biology and ML, where there's so much to learn? I don't know if I'm the best person to answer this question because every day I'm still dealing with it, but you can't really let it stop you from moving forward. I think imposter syndrome in a way is humbling because it motivates me to keep going because I realize I'm not not necessarily the best in my field, but I'm working towards that. I'm working towards improving myself. And again, it goes back to, I think, something I said earlier, which is being humbled to learn, like knowing the more you know that you don't know, but you need to like embrace that and just keep on learning. So I'm the kind of person that can like lock myself up in my room for like 2 days with food and just like try to do something new, like over IAP, over January that we have time here. I just want to learn and learn and learn. And I think that helps me combat imposter syndrome because it helps me prove to myself that I can learn something and I can apply it. So just never stop learning and make friends with the people who make you feel like an imposter. Is the way they are that will help. Like I feel like when people make me feel small, if they're reachable or within access to me, I actually try to befriend them, and that has helped. So like some people I've made friends with most recently are people who I really admire and people who sometimes have intimidated me. And I actually worked with one of them on Hack MIT recently, and that turned out very well. That turned out pretty good. So I reached out to her. She's very smart, and we worked together, and that was good. So I'm getting better at talking to people who scare me or give me the idea of imposter syndrome. Because at MIT, trust me, there's so many smart people. So I'm dealing with it every day, but I'm also overcoming it in the sense that I fight it by reminding myself of how far I've come, and also like surrounding myself with people who remind me of how smart I am and how much I do have to offer and how capable that I am. So have good friends and family like my mom. So next question concerning.
Yeah, I just want to say something to what you just said now. Like, turning the people that make you feel like, oh, I'm imposter syndrome, that kind of thing, making them as friends. I feel like, rather than seeing them as competition, like, oh, I'm going to get better than you, rather than see them like as people that can help you get where you want to get to. So I feel like that's the kind of mindset that you have, rather than, oh, because when people have the competition mindset that, oh, I want to get better than you, I want to, that kind of mindset is what sets people like, when you not see somebody better than you, then you don't see them as enemies. It's very common, like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I just wanted to chip that in.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Amazing contribution. Because the only person you should be competing with is yourself. And people can really help you become a better version of yourself if you put your self pride away and be humble. It's really humbled me, like reaching out to people who I know like are smarter than me, but I think it's also made me a better person individually. Okay, then someone said concerning your IP semester, it's actually IAP, but I understand what you're saying. So concerning your IAP semester, this is Samuel. Must every activity you partake in during this period be related to your academics? No. Many people travel. Like 3 of my friends are traveling to different countries, one to South Africa, one to Ivory Coast, one to like Italy. So MIT has like travel options where you go to another country for that 1 month and teach people. Or what I did wasn't related to my academics. I took a web programming competition class. So you learned and you competed at the same time. It was really fun. There's one that people do called poker bots, where you program bots to play poker. And then who's ever whichever bot wins gets the prize. So that's also fun. What else? People take like language classes. Like one of my friends took like sign language, like American Sign Language, like using their hands to, yeah. And some people don't do anything. Oh, some people take entrepreneurship programs, just stay on campus, work on a startup, work on their own companies, because some people are already working on companies at this stage. So no, it doesn't have to be. Shaliwa asked, how do you handle admission processes for colleges abroad? That's a really broad question. So I'd appreciate if you're more specific. But briefly, I'd say you can check out my video that I made a while ago called Have You Heard About Education USA? I found a lot of people say Education USA. And then if you just check out the YouTube in general, there's like 2 more videos about some like financial aid. Like admissions is broad, so I don't think there's enough time to answer that, especially because this isn't really about admissions. But yeah, maybe start with that video if you haven't seen already. Then Chima said, looking back, do you feel the journey is really worth it? And what advice can you give those that want to ply the same route? The journey, I'm sorry, I'm struggling to understand the question fully, but I'll like try to make sense of what I think you mean. The journey meaning like the path that hasn't been easy to follow to get to like getting to MIT, for instance. Yes, it's definitely worth it. It's hard. Like nothing in life comes easy. So push yourself and follow your dreams, shoot for the stars, shoot for the moon, and you'll land somewhere in the stars actually. So yes, what advice? I'd say just like keep your end goal in mind and surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with people who are working towards the same thing that you are. Surround yourself with people who think big. And like think about the life that you live now versus the life that you want to live. And do you want to stay stuck in a cycle where you like are the same person that you are and never achieve or become who it is you want to be? The answer is probably no. So think about the future self, like think about your future self. And that I hope will motivate you. Like just always remember, like you could be so much more, you can be so much better, you can keep improving. And use that to work towards your goals. It's easier said than done though. So I'm sorry if that sounds easy. It's really not, I promise. But you can do it. I believe in you. Then Chiemela said, oh, someone said they read the book. I'm glad. It's a good book. Chiemela said, what advice do you have for someone who struggles to study or work and has ADHD? Sorry, give me 1 second. Oops. Okay, so I personally haven't struggled with ADHD. And if you think that is something you're struggling with, like, attention. Oh, I'm so sorry. I just realized the question was a direct message. So I probably shouldn't have said their name. Sorry about that. But if that is something you think you're struggling with, I would say talk to someone you trust or like a parent, because you might need to get help beyond just like better studying strategies, or lessons. You might need to get like more personalized help. So I'll be praying for you. I hope that's something you're able to figure out. But I do also have 1 or 2 videos on my YouTube about some academic advice I gave in the context of secondary school. So I wouldn't be able to say the same thing now because university is a different ball game. So I don't know how applicable my advice would be to you, assuming you're not already in university. So I'd say maybe check out those videos to see if you can get 1 or 2 things from them. But they're about like academics and how I studied. Check out the WIAC one. The WIAC one broke down how I specifically prepped for WIAC. And there's a part where I talk about how I scheduled like studying. And then I also gave one about academic advice separately. So I hope that's helpful. I would have answered more in detail, but running out of time. So all the best. And then another direct message says, hi, how are you able to position yourself for opportunities, especially while you were in Nigeria? Are there any books you could recommend that you think made you so intelligent and inquisitive? How are you able to be so motivated? Wow, that's 3 questions. Thank you for all the compliments. Books. Honestly, I didn't really read books like that in secondary school. I can't even lie. I'm trying to read more books now. The books I read were my school books. So that's what I was reading. But I know I did not like I didn't read any books at all. Like I remember reading Half of a Yellow Sun when I was in primary 4 because my dad made me. And I didn't understand the book, but I read it later and it made sense. So I wouldn't really say that books necessarily like change your way of thinking. I can't really pinpoint books that helped me, but I think people's stories inspired me. So I think TED Talks were cool for me. I think hearing and like my mom would send like articles about people who had done great things, and I'd be like, wow, like I would be so intimidated, but I'd be like, wow, so this is possible. And that's why when people like sometimes reach out to me and say that I inspire them, like I know how it feels like to be inspired and realize that something they didn't think was previously possible is possible. So I think like be very attentive to the stories of people, try to learn more about how they did what they did. That's helped me. It's more practical. It's closer to home, especially when it's like people from Nigeria or people who have similar backgrounds to you. And then I think I sort of answered the motivation question about thinking about the self that you want, the life that you want, the person you want to be. That's helped me be motivated. Because I just know there's so much more. And I feel like God has given me an anointing that I don't want to not, that it would be a criminal to not unleash to the world. So I'm really just conscious of like how much I have in store and how much I can offer to the world. And yeah. About positioning yourself for opportunities. I think, if I just see an opportunity, I go for it. I don't really know if that's a good answer, but I'm someone who, if something comes my way, I won't let it slip. And that's something I've learned about myself. It's very hard for me to see something and know that I could have applied and not apply. So like join, if you are not part of Air Lab, I would recommend that you join. That's an opportunity you don't want to let slip. There's probably a lot attached to this program that might be helpful to you. So try to get a bit or a taste of everything. Okay, so I'll answer 2 more questions that were directed to me. And yeah, we're almost at 2 p.m. or 8 p.m. So someone said, what was the transition like from Lagos to MIT and how did you deal with imposter syndrome? I won't answer the imposter syndrome one because someone already asked that already. But from Lagos to MIT, so when I was moving to MIT, my mom came with me, so that was really nice, having that nice settling. Because as part of Education USA, we also had a send-off that prepped us for lots of things with experience. And my roommate's freshman year was also an African student from Zimbabwe. So we had similar backgrounds, different from Americans. So we were able to get through a lot of things together. And I think, honestly, God also carried me through because the transition wasn't the easiest, but we made it and we're here now. What advice can you give someone with 5 years gap year when it comes to admission and visas? Do you think it's possible for freshman acceptance even after being rejected 2 to 3 times? I'm sorry, that's not really a question I can answer because I don't work in the US embassy or whichever embassy it applies to. I also think it's a bit off topic in relation to what we're talking about now. I will say don't give up. I know someone who didn't get into college in the US until like after maybe like 4 times trying. But I also say don't put all your eggs in one basket and look at alternative options. There's like African Leadership University. There's A-level programs that are scholarships like funded, like UWC, I think, United World College. So think about other things. Like you don't only need to think about admission outside of Africa. Like even within Africa, even with Nigeria, there's good opportunities that can help you out. And I'll also be praying for you that good things come your way. And I wish you all the best. Then the last question I will answer before I'll turn it over to Jude to like help us wrap up, which is also the final question. So I got through everyone's questions, thankfully. It says, so thank you for the things you have told us. How can one choose the field he or she wants to dwell within the technology world? If you're interested in tech in general, I don't know if that's like computer science, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, it's so broad. The more you explore, the more you'll figure it out. I promise. Like, just do things. Like, make a list of all the things you want to do. And one at a time, try to find opportunities within them. So that's something I'm doing, which is easier said, I guess. But because MIT, and I'm fortunate enough to have MIT that has all these research opportunities, I'm trying to explore all the things one at a time. I don't think I'll even get to all of them, but one at a time, I like do something I wanted to explore. And after doing it, I figure out whether or not I liked it. Like if I didn't enjoy it, it's like, okay, thank God I know now that that's not something I want to do anymore. And I move on to the next. So don't close doors, just explore them. If you don't know what something entails, try to get a taste of it. And in some cases, you can sort of like extrapolate, meaning like if you've experienced something, you can infer that something else that's very close to that thing you probably will not like either. So sort of like strategically positioning yourself and just always seeking out new things you can learn. And if you find something that you like, try to stick with it too. So yeah, there's one more question that someone just sent, but I don't know if you have time for that. I'll hand it over to Jude. And I also already answered a question from this person, so I'll just leave it for now. Yeah, but I hope this was helpful.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Victory. You really answered so many questions, and so many questions that were not asked yet. As we go on and on, then the time would, because they didn't even really allow me to ask my questions. Can you just imagine?
Yeah, sorry.
But then I guess because this is community then, so I feel like it's, as you said, answering their questions really matters. So I just want to know how many minutes do you still have to spare so I can do my calculations well.
I can stay
We
for
have like
8 more minutes, but
8 minutes.
actually I think I'll answer this question this person sent because I just read it. It says, I want to do math, but I don't feel like it has any application on human lives, and sometimes I feel guilty. Math, you can do so much with math, I promise you. like you don't need to study biology to save lives. Biology is like one aspect of something that can be helpful. And sometimes biology research isn't necessarily something that is directly going to save lives. But I know many people who are doing amazing things with math. You can eventually apply math to biology. Biology is not the only thing, but you can apply math to building structures that are to buildings, to creating like buildings that are accessible to humans, to solving many problems. Like I promise you, like do follow your passion for now, and it will work out. And you'll get to a point in your career where you want to fuse what you know with what can make an impact. And I don't think you should start out doing it that way. I think become good at something, and you get to a point where you figure out how to merge that with direct impact on like the lives around you. Yeah, okay.
Cool, because I'm even studying math, so yeah, so it's not, yeah, you can actually study math and still do a lot. Well, math, apart from, saving lives, math helps improve your problem solving skills, critical thinking skills, and so many things. And although there are like some high level concepts in math that are like so abstract and it's far from real, applications, but then you can still like go out of, the boundaries, and the skills you get are applicable in other areas like in AI, in software engineering, and other things. So math just makes you a smart person. And I'm sure Victory loves to math, or you still love math, or you don't like.
I mean, it depends on the
you
math.
know,
There's some math I don't like. I don't
oh,
like all math.
okay, all right. Okay, so we have 5 minutes left, and I just have a few questions which we'll be able to answer within that 5 minutes. So do you have any regrets or any regrets now? Like something like if you had a time machine, just run back in time and just fix this or do something, is there anything like that you have?
No,
You
I
don't?
think that's not a good way to live life, like thinking about what you would change. I mean, there's like some minor things where like, oh, I wish I'd applied for something before the deadline, but like also everything works out together for good is like a mindset that I've embraced, and delay is never denial. So if you miss something one time, it will come around again likely. And if it doesn't, then something even better will come your way. And yeah, like because I'm the kind of person who wants to get so many things done and wants to do all these things, I'm learning to calm down and realize that like things will happen when they need to happen. as long as I'm doing my part and I'm also allowing God to do his part. Like there's something that someone told me that stuck with me, which was like, if you pray to catch a bus and then you run to the bus and get there on time, like even if you're like 30 seconds late or something, if you run after the bus, but if you still miss the bus, then maybe the bus wasn't meant for you. Like, I don't know if I explained that properly, but basically, if you pray and if you work for it, if you pray to catch the bus, if you work to get on time to the bus and you run for the bus, but you still miss the bus, then at that point, you've done your absolute best. So there's really no point regretting. And if you do have regrets for things you could have done better, then try to fix it going forward. If you keep looking back, you can't really change time. Time travel so far has not been invented. So always try to think about the future and not the past. Like the would haves, the could haves, the should haves, they can be very painful. But if you live your life stuck on those, you won't move forward. And trust me, I've definitely had moments where I regret for some time, but I moved past it. So I've tried to just like push regret behind me as quickly and as much as possible.
All right. Yeah, you're very right. And it's not about time travel. Well, the time travel could come very soon. But that's another topic for another day. Time travel is something else. Okay, so I'll just ask you some random questions, and it's not so serious, just some random questions. And we're going to call it a day. I believe we've all learned a lot, even me. So, DC or Marvel? Do you watch any movies like that? DC, Marvel? Which do you like?
DC or Marvel? Definitely Marvel.
Why?
Oh, well, okay. Maybe I haven't watched enough DC movies, but I've just watched a lot more Marvel. I think also because when I was growing up, like my dad used to watch a lot of Marvel. So I just also watched like Marvel movies, like the Avengers I watched, like Iron Man, Hulk. I'm more familiar with the Marvel characters. And I think I watched like, what was it called? There was this movie I watched that was a DC movie. And I think it was like the first and
Justice League.
second, first and last. It wasn't good. Like I
Was
watched
it
it and I
Justice
just
League?
was not impressed. I don't know if it was Justice League. Like I don't remember which one it was, but I just thought Marvel was better. I really like the Marvel characters
Who's
too.
your favorite
So
Marvel character? Who's your favorite?
Iron Man.
Oh, because of the tech.
Yeah, he also is an MIT alum in the movie. Wait, actually, I take that back. It was Iron Man until Black Panther came along. And then Black Panther was my favorite, but then after the second one, I really liked Princess Shuri. So
Oh,
maybe she's my favorite Marvel character. Yeah. And
alright.
then the MIT student second movie, I'm definitely biased towards her as well. Lionheart, I think. Is that her name? I don't know. But she's a Marvel character.
All right. Interesting. Okay. Tea or coffee?
I would have said tea before, but these days I've been drinking a lot of coffee. So now, like since September, it's been coffee.
Okay. Um. Let's see what we have here. Okay, I think you're talking about how you unwind after a long day. You can just skip that. Okay, what's one thing you appreciate knowing today? What's one thing you appreciate knowing today?
In what context? Just in general? That like something I know now that I didn't used to know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm,
Like one thing that changed the whole mindset. Like that's
oh, that was a hard question. I
okay.
do think
Okay,
I
since
definitely know. Wait, no, like forgive me, like also this is probably the last question I can answer, unfortunately, because I do have to leave. But I think Marianne Williamson's quote wasn't something I had heard before university, and it really helped me at a time where I was struggling with like my perception of how people perceive me. So I can share it in the chat, but I believe it's also on my LinkedIn profile. But it's the quote that starts with um I believe our
you can
deepest
bring
fear
it
is
up.
not that we are inadequate.
Yeah, I've seen that
Yeah, our
at
descriptors.
at the
But
bottom
the
of your
specific part,
LinkedIn.
yeah, the specific part that I like is that it says there is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, and as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So that's something I started embracing, especially towards the start of my second year, where I was really just trying to shrink myself a lot because I just felt like there's lots of attention. Like I didn't want to be in any way in like any spotlights. Like I just wanted to focus on school. And like that's still my goal. My goal is to do well in school. But I'm also learning that like a big part of my life, I hope, is to inspire other people. And if I shrink and if I hide that, then like people not hearing my story isn't really going to be a benefit to like it's like sort of more selfish, I guess. So let me just drop that in the chat where it's really just about letting your light shine. I think every single person on this call has a gift and has a calling and has something that you are born to unleash to the world. And I think it's your duty as a human to cultivate that, and to do your part to liberate others from their own fear by being liberated from your own fear. So overcome your fears, and the day you stop living for people is really the day you start living. And I'm not saying I'm not still conscious about how I'm perceived by other people. I just think I'm better now, where I just want to share my story in a way that is as humble as possible, but in a way that also empowers other people to do their own thing, to shine their lights, to make their own type of impact. And yeah, so yes,
Yeah, so it's sort
that's
of like discovering you, right? Discovering your purpose
yeah,
and living to the fullest. Right? All right, so we're
exactly.
gonna take you in, and thank you so much, guys. We're already exceeding the time. Okay, so thank you so much, Victory. I would like to take a snapshot of this. So I'd like you to smile while I take the snapshot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or do people want to turn on their camera so there's more? But I don't know. But if it's just two
Okay,
of
yeah,
us,
I guess I'm gonna do that again. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, so you guys can turn on your cameras. Um, I will take a snapshot of. All right, if you feel comfortable to turn on your camera, you could. All right, so I'll be doing that now. So Victor, please, I'd like you to look at the camera and smile. All right. Yep, I got it. All right,
okay.
thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for
Yeah, thank
coming.
you guys for coming. And thank you for all your questions. And I wish you guys all the best with all your endeavors. And thank you,
And
Jude, for organizing.
yeah, and thank you, Dr. Prof. Chika. She's actually on the call. So I'll say thank you, Ma, for giving us the opportunity to do this. So thank you, guys. We hope to do more of this, and we hope to also see more of Victory. Yeah. So thank you so much. It was
Okay,
nice,
bye.
talking to you and everything. So bye, guys. Bye.
When you leave, I reach the sticker.